Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Dominic, I'm the host of the Android Factory. Today's episode is an extension on the previous one, so if you missed it, you might want to check that one out, where we built out this search bar here, but basically we didn't connect it to an API. Here now we have connected this to an API, the search query that the user put in. We end up hitting the Rick and Morty API, we get data for whatever they're searching. So let's go ahead and back this screen up a little bit from the previous episode and build it out fresh. All right, and rerunning and reverting our code here, we have the old screen here. So as we start typing hello, we capture that user query and then we just kind of print that out. We're not making any API calls, but the functionality of the search bar still remains. As a quick little refresher here, we have a column, we have this row here that has all of our search stuff in it. We obviously have that text view that we're spitting out, and then we have our search view model with our search text state in it, the text field state that we're leveraging to kind of just make all this user interaction kind of work. Now that we're building this out a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and put this in its own file. And just like that, we have our view model in a separate file like we would expect. Nothing else has changed here. I'm just going to quickly talk about the networking side of things because I did leave this completed from off screen because it's not the sexiest stuff on the planet, but just want to cover it real quick. So we had this get character by page function. We've gone ahead and updated it to allow for the query params, which is just a map of string to string here. And that is because our documentation here outlines there's a couple of different ways that you can actually filter this API. We're going to leverage the name, but you can also filter by status or species or type, etc. And the way we do that here is by adding in a query param where we have, key value pairing that we send up to the API. So I just went ahead and modified this particular get character by page because this endpoint is paginated. Go ahead and hit the character endpoint. We put in our page number as a parameter, and then also this map that we have, we are iterating over all of it, and we are appending the keys and values to the request here. So this is a pretty flexible function as it relates to filtering the paginated API. I went ahead and created this additional function here, which looks very similar to how we fetched all of our episodes. So over here on the emulator, if we click over to the episodes page, we see that we have all of the different episodes here. It doesn't just come from one particular API call. It actually comes from this process of repeating an API call as many times as we need to fetch all of the pages. In our very first page that we get back, we do get the info.pages field, which will tell us how many pages we actually need to fetch in order to fetch all of the data. We're doing something similar here for searching all characters by name so that we don't have to constantly be managing, as the user scrolls to the bottom of the screen, fetch another page. Instead, we're just getting the first page, we're getting all of the extra pages after that, and then we're just going to go ahead and display all of the data all at once when we get it back. So hopefully this is okay to do it off camera. It's not really the point of the video. The repository, we just kind of updated a tiny bit here. Fortunately, with passing in an empty map as a default parameter did not blow up the other usage of this API call. So pretty straightforward to kind of make a change that isn't crippling. And then we just created another suspend function to access that search all characters by name given a particular search query, which we are obviously going to map to whatever the user puts in here, to actually do that. So that's how the data is actually coming to us. Again, all this code is on GitHub if you do want to pull it down and take a look at it for yourself. Now we can get into some interesting things about our view model so that we can go ahead and actually make all of this connect. So right now we're reading the text from the text field state, debouncing every half a second here. This is where we get our data from, right? If it is blank, we have the awaiting your command. Otherwise, we just output the string here that we're capturing. And so that's what this user interaction is doing over here. And then obviously storing the state in our view model scope. But we're going to have to go ahead and change this around. And so one thing we can do to better describe the user's search state is create a sealed interface around it. So we're going to go ahead and create something called search state. There is going to be an object here that is just called empty, which is going to extend our search state, excuse me. And then our data class here of, let's just say user query is going to be defined like this. We have a simple data class here. It has whatever the user has put in. Again, we have the search state. So what we can do here in our snapshot flow is we can actually change this around. So if the query, the it in this reference is whatever is coming out of the text field state. So if it is blank, we're going to go ahead and change this around to be search state.empty. And then otherwise, we are going to wrap what they put in as a user query with the actual value in it. Our initial state at this point is going to change to a search state.empty state flow of our search state. Perfect. So now we have a way of reading in a little bit better fashion what user has actually put into this. And now the search state is going to be something we're going to manage inside of our search view model or leverage it inside of here. So we're just going to have that be private. We will also create a little bit of a function here. We'll just name it observe user search. I'm going to set that equal to our view model scope.launch here. And what we're going to actually do is observe our search text state. We're going to collect the latest here. And now we can very cleanly interact with this search state whenever it gets updated from our user. I can say when our search state is empty, we'll go ahead and have a block for that here. When it's a user query, when they've actually filled something out, we have a block for that there. And we can start to connect this up to a regular state and an API call here. So we're going to go ahead and do something similar again. We'll have another sealed interface here that's just called, I don't know, let's call it screen state. Object here of empty. Another object here for when we are actually actively searching. Error state content, which is going to hold our user query inside of it. And then it will also have the, I don't know, let's call it results, which will be a list of characters to display. And now we have a way of, extrapolating a search state into a screen state. We're going to go ahead and create the classic mutable UI state here, mutable characters, which is going to start as an empty list. And then we will have our UI state here is going to be the UI state as state flow, publicly exposed so that the composable can go ahead and handle that here. So when we do have an empty state here, it's going to be pretty straightforward. We are going to just say update this to our screen state dot empty. Yep, I don't know why this is actually a list of characters. Kind of getting ahead of myself here. This is obviously supposed to be our screen state here, and then this will be the screen state dot empty to start with. We'll then update it to empty as well whenever the search state is empty, when the user has nothing in the search bar. And then when we actually have a user query here, we're going to have to go ahead and interact with our repository and actually make the call here. So we're going to go ahead and have a private function here to say, I don't know, search all characters. This is going to take in our query from the user there. We're going to set this equal to our view model scope launch, and then we're going to go ahead and do a couple operations inside of here. And then when we actually have the user query here, we're just going to go ahead and call search all characters with that query that we've passed in. Right? So this function seems to be actually pretty much done, which is really, really good. And now we have a function here in a suspending context that we can go ahead and update our UI state. We have the query. We're going to have to go ahead and inject in our private val character repository, just like that. Because again, we do have all this set up with Hilt. So the first thing we can go ahead and do, because we have the state for it, is update it to screen state dot searching, and then we're going to go ahead and say repository dot fetch all characters by name. Our search query is going to be the query passed in, and then we have our on success block and our on failure block, and this is going to be handling our network call. Right, so inside of the failure block, we're going to obviously update this dot message, and for some reason that is null. Whoops, something went wrong. You could figure out a better error handling if you really needed to, but this will obviously work for our circumstances here. And then on success, we have the list of characters here. So we are just going to update our UI state here, state.content at this point, and then we're going to have our user query is going to be the query passed into this function, and then our results is going to equal our characters, which obviously is not going to resolve until we rename this. And there we go. So we have built in our functionality to search characters. This is all being invoked at the proper time with the user's input. And now we just have this one function here, observe user search, that kind of connects the dots here between this privately held state flow specifically of our search state and the actual act of all of the network calls here. So this is pretty interesting, pretty easy. Could kind of do this in an init block, but we're going to go ahead and be a little bit better and actually have a function to call. The interesting thing to note here is when you actually set a function equal to ViewModelScope.launch, that means that this function is going to return a job. And with the instance of a job, you can go ahead and manage that job inside of some other context that kind of needs to know when to start or when to stop. So what we'll do here in our search screen is we will create a disposable effect, and then we're going to have this disposable effect scope. So what we're going to do here is, let's just say, and for lack of a better term here, we are just going to use the variable job, and we're going to set this to observe user search. And in our on dispose, we can say job.cancel, right? So this is going to make sure that we are listening when we are within the composition, and then when we do get disposed here from composition, we can go ahead and cancel that job so that we kind of keep our view model and our posable in tune with one another. But at this point here, this is going to run immediately, and this is going to start to observe the user search as we come into the screen. So this is pretty powerful and pretty helpful. Now, obviously, our actual handling of the UI is going to break because we made the search text state private, and instead of our search view model, we have that UI state here that we can listen to, and then we are going to collect as state with lifecycle, and then we can go ahead and act upon this here. So obviously our text is not really going to be doing anything. I'll comment that out because I might want it later. And then let's see. So we have that row up top. We can very simply switch on our, well, it's not search text, it's going to be our screen state here, and then we're going to kind of get into normal compose elements here as far as putting a screen together. So the benefit of having that sealed interface is we have the when statement that kind of tells us what to do in all these different areas. Reordering a few so that we have the is's next to one another. When we are in an empty state here, this is probably what this is going to be used for. So we're just going to go ahead and paste this in. We're going to go ahead and just have, search for characters as a little call to action. In our empty state, let's see, in our searching state, we're going to actually do something else. And then we have our content and our error. So we have another to do here. I'm just going to go ahead and leverage this exact thing. And instead of something like that, we will have state.message, which is again coming from our error state of the instance of the screen state. So all that is coming together quite nicely. And then here we have our content, which is where we're going to build the rest of our screen. And so we're going to create a private function here that is a composable, that is just the content, so that we don't have this massive when statement kind of cascading everything, indenting everything and whatnot. We can just operate inside of this particular composable here. And so as you can see, we are within a column here. When we go ahead and actually call this function, I'm just going to go ahead and collapse this to get it up a little bit further here in the IDE, and then we're just going to go ahead and build some things out here. So let's just get a lazy column here for displaying our content, right? We have the items here is going to be from our content.results. And then we can go ahead and just iterate over each one of these. And if you remember from the video earlier, the little list view item that we saw looks a little bit different than this grid character item that we have here. So we actually have something called a character list item composable here. The character is going to be it. Our data points we are going to have to fetch here. And then I believe this last trailing lambda, I'm going to put it inside of here, is just the on click, which we will have to handle as well. After cleaning some code up here, when we take a look at this declaration, we have an issue here. We are not passing in the list of data points. And as we see here in the preview, that is, there's an image right over here. And then there's a bunch of just different data points that we iterate over to actually make, the UI elements over here. We do use this concept of a data point elsewhere. It's literally just a title and description. I'm trying to just find exactly where it is. Yeah, I think it's right here. So we're just going to go ahead and copy this implementation from a previous, screen that we already used this on. We could and probably should pull this out a little bit, but we haven't done that yet. So we're just going to be go ahead and adding in these data points here when we're iterating over the list. We're going to go ahead and rename this item to character so that we stop having all those issues. And then we just go ahead, pop our character in there, pop our data points in there, and then obviously the on click of each item, we are going to have to do that one. So enough talking, enough bouncing around. Let's go ahead and rerun this and see where we're at. Coming back to life here, we're going to bounce over to our search screen. We see that empty state there. And if we do Morty, we see we do get something on screen. Does not look exactly like it did before, but we are getting these characters. We are displaying them on screen. So now there's just a little bit of compose work to go ahead and make it look a little nicer. Obviously, one thing that we're going to go ahead and do here is add in our vertical arrangement. We're going to have the arrangement based by, we'll do 8 dp, and then we will be setting our content padding, be the padding values. Let's start with just horizontal of that 16 dp to get us off of the edge there. Do get a little bit better of a screen here. We do see that we are, a little bit better. If we scroll all the way to the bottom, we see that it does kind of just end right there on that last one. So one thing I like to do here, we're gonna have to change this around. We will do the start and we will specify the end DP to be the same. And then we're gonna go ahead and have our bottom DP be something larger, like a 24 dp, so that it's a little obvious when you reach the end of the list there. We're going to go ahead and leave the top alone for now because we did have above this a text element here that said something along the lines of how many results there were for the particular search query. And we can simply resolve this by saying content.results.size. Results for, we'll see how that looks. I do think that'll be okay. Font size 26. We can maybe make that a little smaller. Padding of 32 dp. I don't think we need that much. Coming back here, we have our search screen. We type in Morty, and we see here we have 40 results for Morty, and we have some kind of, pretty harsh edge there, which is a little unfortunate, but we do see this screen starting to come back together, which is great. Let's see here, what else can we do? So let's go ahead and add in a spacer here. We'll put a modifier with a height of 4 dp. We'll also have a background with a particular brush, and then we will end with our color.transparent. That should give us a small little gradient. All right, we got nothing there. That's good. And looking at this, I think there's actually two problems here. Sorry for getting ahead of myself. So first, we should probably wrap this inside of a box so they can overlap. And then we're going to go ahead and take our spacer here, put it towards the bottom there, so it now appears on top, which is great. And then let's see here. I actually saw that we weren't even doing a fill max width, so that wasn't the only problem, but definitely not helping. Go ahead and make this a little bit taller just to see if we can see it and see how that looks. Rerunning here, we will get back to our search page. We will type in Morty, and as we scroll, yeah, we can see, especially through the image, you can really see that scrim coming through. So it doesn't really seem as harsh up there, which is just really nice. As we get towards the bottom here, we will see that we're not completely at the bottom of the screen until we scroll up a little bit. So all those little touches there, which is really great. 40 results for Morty, we go ahead and delete it. It's all good. If we have Rick here, we can see we also have 40 results for Rick. I guess that makes sense. They're in every episode and whatnot. But if we saw someone like Summer here, oh, look at that. Hold on, that's an error. Summer here, we only have 12 results, and then we get those 12 back. But let's go back here real quick. We are just outputting the entire issue here to the UI. So, this is super helpful for absolutely no users. Let's go ahead and clean this up. And let's just walk our way through it here. So we obviously have our screen content. We're going to have to take a look, not in our composable itself, but inside of our view model here. And inside of here, we are emitting, I guess, just that entire error. Maybe let's just say no search results found. Flipping back over to here, if we go summer, we have no search results found. Okay, cool. If we wanted to have a little retry button or a clear button in here or something along those lines, we definitely could. As I say, I think that's actually a pretty reasonable way to distinguish some of these states. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add that in. But if you made it this far in the video, would really appreciate a like, would really appreciate having some feedback down below, because that's basically it for the functionality of this page. I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit to our error state here. We have the text. Let's go ahead and slap a button in here. On click, we are going to do a very similar thing to that trash can icon, where we're going to say search text field state. I believe it is, I don't think there's a clear, oh, there is a clear text. Is that what we're doing up here? That is not what we're doing here. We're actually saying search text field state dot edit, and then we're deleting the entire thing. Let's see if it works the same though. And that code I was looking at before is actually what happens when they click the trash can icon that we see appearing over here. Sorry, I need to get something that doesn't hit results. No search results found. Yeah, okay, so that does actually do the same thing. Interesting. So clear text and delete for the length here are synonymous. So I would probably go with clear text because it's a little bit easier to reason about and whatnot, but I guess you could choose either one. So we're going to have our text here. We're going to go ahead and say clear search. We're going to have a modifier on this of, let's do fill max width, and then we're going to say padding horizontal of and quite large. We're running here with some garbage. We see here we have our clear search field. Everything works just fine there. And rerunning here, we see that we kind of changed around that button a tiny bit. We went ahead and added the colors here to be the container color being our rig action, which is that same, highlight kind of color. Went ahead and updated the color of the text to then not be white because it was very painful to see. And then we updated our padding, just make that button a little bit smaller. But point is, with everything that we do with Compose, when we do have some kind of state here that we can listen to and observe to, it makes it very easy to build out the different, branches that we have here. We're simply just saying when we're empty, searching, error, content, etc., and then we just do whatever we want within that. It's very easy to add something to our error state by simply just adding a button in when this is the correct type that we're looking for, right? And it really all then just boils down to our implementation of the view model, the logic behind everything, and then it kind of just starts to come together pretty easily. Speaking of states here, we skipped over our searching state as we mentioned here. Now it is inside of our screen state, so we could put it inside of here, but another way of doing this here could be similar to how we have the trash can icon animate in and out. We can simply have our animated visibility here. We can simply then, we got to move this actually just below our definition of our screen state here so that we can take a look at it and say screen state is the searching instance. And if it is, then we're going to go ahead and add in our linear progress indicator. Here we will have a modifier dot height of, I don't know, let's say 60p, and we'll say fill max width. We'll just take a look at what that actually looks like. It might be happening too quickly that we might need to put a little bit of a delay inside of our view model, but we'll take a look. So at the top above that, yeah, hold on, let's put a little bit of a delay. Inside of our function here to search for all characters, since we are in a suspending context, we are just going to delay for 4 seconds at this very moment. So we see we have this state happening down here, or sorry, this little linear progress bar happening there. That's not exactly where I wanted it though, to be quite frank. I guess I wanted it above this entire row underneath the search bar here. So we'll just simply move a couple of these items up because it's just that simple nowadays, which is fantastic. And we can make that a little bit smaller for DP. That should be about it. It's really this simple to do something like a loading state. If you wanted to define a more proper loading state, we have it available. But yeah, we do see that, hey, something is searching at that point. We are making progress. When the results come back, then, we see them on screen. So it's always good to give your users a little bit of feedback here and there when things are happening. We're going to go ahead and change that to the Rick action color as well, which again is just that highlight of the trash can icon. And with this final rerun here, I do think we are going to close out this video. So again, thank you so much for paying attention. Thank you so much for sticking on throughout all of this. I'd love to hear any feedback. Download the code from GitHub and check it out yourself if you want to make any changes. But it's really that simple. Yeah, I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks so much.